mission is going to be carried out. But Telegram channels of the Wagner group, there are several reports that are suggesting that, and this I think was put out by the Kyiv Post, they're now going to march to Moscow. So 10 other people that got killed in that plane crash, we'll talk about that as well. Praggnanandhaa versus Magnus Carlsen. That just final. I mean, Pragyan on the moon and Praggnanandhaa here on earth, our Pragg and Pragyan story. But it seems like the Praggnanandhaa versus Magnus Carlsen impasse is going to be solved with a tie-break. This tie-break is going to be a shorter format. We'll talk about that as well. And the Supreme Court has come down on,
it has made a very interesting observation on Article 370.
Against the abrogation of Article 370. They're essentially saying that
370 is not a permanent feature. That's what the Supreme Court
So it's again come back to that permanent temporary debate.
See, the debate entirely has been whether it can be abrogated. For it to be abrogated, whether it fell into the permanent or the temporary category. So that was the debate that was going on, and we will discuss about that.
Absolutely. All right. So a couple of topics that we have lined up that we're going to cover for you, and the BRICS' final day, the summit's final day, and Prime Minister's reaction on the BRICS' expansion. That is something that is going to be our focus. But first and foremost, Chandrayaan, ladies and gentlemen. Yesterday at 6:04 p.m., our lander Vikram Sarabhai's actual feat, they landed on the lunar surface. It was a successful, flawless braking phase, the descent phase, and after that, the celebration that has ensued, the festivities that ensued. I'm sure there were parties that happened
there was
elsewhere.
Also, I was looking at some of the headlines, and you were just pointing out, the moon is Indian, is what the Indian Express has put out. I got the Tribune. The Tribune has a very interesting headline over here. It says, Moon Mentis.
Moon Mentis. Yeah. Not momentous.
Momentous, but Moon Mentis. And that's a very interesting headline that is there completely on the banner section as such.
India goes where no nation's gone before. Ace of space. Our moonment in the sun. Pole position is first to land in the southern polar region of moon. Usually you give a pole position in racings, in races, and in racing sports, in Formula 1, in MotoGP, you get a pole position for beginning the race on the front position. But India's at the pole position on the south pole.
And the Hindustan Times has got something like Chandrayaan-3 to 1 contact, and all of them explaining how it has been intense, 18 minutes for this timeless milestone. Vikram lands at 6:03 p.m. Of course, you have mentioned about it. Grand moment of success for India. India is on the moon. Celebrations across the country. I mean, the kind of prayers and the kind of rituals that was followed to ensure that it was a success. It became an issue of national pride. Now, the best part of it is that we have reached a place where many of the nations have not been able to reach. First, in the southern polar region of the moon. The Chinese have been able to be on the far side of the moon. We are first to be on the southern side of the moon, and a place where it is speculated that water is present, and also probably build up our colonies over there, because water, once you break them into hydrogen and oxygen, technically becomes rocket fuel, and otherwise it is also the source to sustain life if a colony is possible on that region. So all the data that we are going to collect is going to be momentous for humanity as a whole, who probably is looking at into the stars right now.
And well, take a look at this. Chandrayaan-3's landing, ladies and gentlemen. Chandrayaan-3's landing on the moon south pole broke the Spanish streamer IBAI's world record of 3.4 million viewers. According to IBAI, at 5:53 p.m. yesterday, just minutes before the lander Vikram landed on the moon surface, more than 5.6 million viewers were watching its soft landing live streamed on ISRO's official YouTube channel.
That is the thing. I mean, I'm just taking one.
That record has been broken.
So I thought I'll bring in some regional news as well.
Right, absolutely.
So in Kannada Prabha, what is written is this: Chandrayaan-3 lander Ninda Horabanda Pragyan rover ISROge NASA Putin Seri Ganyerinda Abhinandan. Said that the lander has come out, and ISRO has been completely in the limelight of success, and they have been appreciated by Putin as well as NASA. But some of those interesting tidbits that you've just pointed out have also been taken by this Kannada newspaper. It says YouTube Itihasadalli Dakle Baridda Chandrayaan-3 Ati Hecchu Nera Prasarada Vikshana, in the sense it has, like you pointed out, one of the highest viewership of broadcast on YouTube. So I think that just broke the records like anything for YouTube itself. Chandrayaan-3 Yashasvi Chandrana Mele Vikram lander safe land Itihasika Kshana. Chandrayaan-3 mission Chandrayaan Sparshisiದ ನಂತರ ಲ್ಯಾಂಡರ್ ವಿಕ್ರಮ್ ಮತ್ತು ರೋವರ್ ಪ್ರಗ್ಯಾನ್ ಕೆಲಸವೇನು. In fact, they are asking what is going to be the mission task for Pragyan. So, of course, an elated Prime Minister has also been mentioned over here.
But Times of India has put out, a list of moon and sci-fi movies. Landing on moon has long been figured in literature and movies. From the Earth to the moon, some lists, part of that list, The Man Who Sold the Moon, Voyage dans la Lune, A Trip to the Moon, Frau I'm Mond, Girl in the Moon, A Fall of Moon Dust, Diamonds Are Forever. This page essentially says, now, well, let's build on the moon. And even as we're witnessing all these visuals, yesterday, Sharad Pawar over there, the NCP Supremo, also sitting and watching the live telecast. The amount of people who watched the live telecast on big screens and big, huge gatherings was immense. I think for one complete hour, the entire nation stood still and watched the landing in unison.
They did,
really brought the nation together.
It did bring the nation together. A lot of people were, in fact, I was traveling at that time, and I did see that a lot of people were glued into their mobile phones, all of them keeping a track of what was happening at the place.
But there were people who were a little oblivious to what was happening. Take a look at this. Rajasthan Minister louds Chandrayaan-3's passengers. So Rajasthan Sports Minister Ashok Chandna was trolled on Wednesday after a video emerged of him purportedly hailing the passengers on board the lander Vikram moments before the Chandrayaan-3. Congratulations to all the passengers
who...
All the passengers on board Chandrayaan-3.
See, most politicians would be having, standard reply before knowing, and therefore I think that was just a standard reply.
Isn't it funny?
But yeah, it is out of context completely. Also,
everybody is congratulating ISRO for a soft landing, and
then you have a Rajasthan
sports minister saying that, congratulations to all the passengers.
But on a serious note, I was going through a Malayalam Manorama article, and it actually pointed out to the fact that there is a space race between India and China. And, I'll just read a small excerpt of it and then translate it immediately for our viewers as well. This is what it is being, the headline says that, Bahiragashate Balabalam, Indiam Chinayum Tamilulladu Aprakhyabida Malsaram, in the sense that it is an unannounced competition that is there when it comes to space between India and China. And, for me, this is what that particular gist of it comes in this. This is what it says. In Malayalam, I'll just read it fast. Indiyum Chinayum Tamilulla Bahiragasha Malsaravum Uttaram. Nadagiya Nimishangalana Arangeriയിട്ടുള്ളത്. മാത്രമല്ല മത്സരമുണ്ടെന്ന് തന്നെ ഇരുവരും പരസ്യമായി പ്രഖ്യാപിക്കുന്നതുമില്ല. In the sense, what they are saying is that there is a competition, but both of them are not telling that there is a competition. And further down, the writer also says that when you ask Indian scientists, they say that China is exploring the space as it wants, and India has its own goals when it comes to exploring deep space. Essentially, yesterday's moon landing has actually triggered that thing, saying that like the previous Soviet Union and the United States, India and China from Asia is on a competition that is going to be intense, and that competition is going to be something that we are going to see in the coming days, because immediately after the success of the landing, you had the Prime Minister making that statement.
Take a look at that. Elon Musk, a lot of international reception to this as well. Elon Musk saying congratulations to India and tagging ISRO over there as well. Of course, we also saw the Russian President Vladimir Putin sending in congratulations. That's Bill Nelson, who's part of NASA, I believe.
Director of NASA.
Director of NASA, who's, congratulated India on this stellar achievement. And this one particularly, Ibrahim Mohammed Soli, is congratulating the Prime Minister and ISRO, saying that as a fellow South Asian and as a fellow South Asian nation, we are proud of this historic achievement. Take a look at this. another, I mean, the international reception was so immense, incredible. Congratulations to ISRO and Chandrayaan-3 and to all the people of India. And it certainly was a moment of pride. And like the President put it, Draupadi Murmu put it, she said that this is a momentous occasion. It's like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, once-in-a-lifetime event. Things like these happen only once in people's lifetime.
Well, I think that is how the President, in fact, sums up this entire landing as such.
And this propulsion of happiness at the Mission Control Center. The Prime Minister yesterday said this is the victory cry of a developed India. And he was, you know, very prompt.
And he didn't stop at that. He didn't stop at that. When he says the victory cry of a developed India, he said that we are going to go with Aditya L1, we are going to go with a probable Shukrayaan, then we are going to have
Shukrayaan,
to Venus. And then he also said that you know, we would be putting a rover on Mangalyaan when it comes to Mars as well. So then, of course, the biggest of all ISRO's challenges, and also a feat that we will be probably in the next decade achieving.
Sheikh Mohammed also congratulating India on that. You were saying.
So I was saying Gaganyaan is going to be that big momentous moment when we'll be able to actually send a person to space, and probably that would start that what we call as a crucial space race that we are seeing. But right now, we're seeing a lot of international space agencies willing to cooperate with us.
This picture, Varghese, such an iconic picture. This picture is going to become so historic. It's the first picture after successful, you know, soft landing on the moon. You can see one of the legs of Vikram as well. And I've been saying it again and again that this is nobody else's. This is Vikram Sarabhai's legs. This is Vikram Sarabhai himself, who's finally stepped, you know, touched down, stepped his foot on the ground, on the lunar ground. The shadow of the, you know, the lander's leg and just the soil, you can essentially see. I mean, I looked at this picture and I kept on staring at this picture for the longest time. And you know what's important to note about this picture is the fact that you can see that the AI system chose a relatively smoother and flatter ground.
Well, that it speaks about our software. And when you speak about the smoother ground, you know, the southern pole is actually completely filled with craters. It is an uneven surface, and it is said to be one of the riskiest places where you could have actually gone for a landing. It is much easier to, in fact, go on these plains on the moon, which is flatter, which doesn't have much of craters, to actually land. But we have taken that challenge and we've been able to go ahead and land at a very precarious spot. This, in fact, is testament to the technology that we have developed as a spacefaring nation.
Absolutely. But also one more thing that we need to talk about is, of course, that of the Pragyan rover. Now, after, you know, touchdown, when the dust settled, people were waiting that it might even take another day for the Pragyan rover to come out. But the Pragyan rover did come out. I mean, by the time I left the studio, when I reached home, I did in fact have news that, you know, the rover has come out. The door opened, and there were several memes of, you know, aggressive Bollywood scenes where they were saying, "Are darwaza to kholo bhai, open the door." You know, those kind of memes.
You mean to say that the rover was having a FOMO moment because everybody was celebrating the lander?
Absolutely, absolutely. And then finally, the rover did actually come out. There were visuals that came out from you know, the ISRO center in Bengaluru. People were clapping. And you know, there's a picture that's been put out by the Dainik Jagran as well.
Actually, I wanted to ask you how the Hindi papers did cover it.
दक्षिणी ध्रुव पर उतरने वाला पहला देश बना भारत. Rough braking successful, altitude hold कामयाब, fine braking successful, terminal descent complete. India is on the moon. ये विकसित भारत की शंखनाद, Modi, war cry of a developed India. दक्षिणी ध्रुव पर उतरने वाला पहला देश बना भारत. लैंडर के रैंप पर आया रोवर प्रज्ञान. This is the picture that you know, has been put out. I'm going to request the control room to, in case we've got pictures of the Pragyan rover, do in fact put that out. And it's important because the Pragyan rover, Varghese, is going to be carrying out those experiments on the ground. The seismic activity, density, the elements that we might just end up finding, the radioactivity of all these elements. That is something that the Pragyan rover is going to carry out with the packages that have been set on that particular.
There's a whole lot of interesting.
26 kilograms heavy,
of weight,
and it uses 50 watts of power. It's got a proper sun panel because that it just comes up and the solar panel, it just works right through. 14 days of experimentation. It's got a big task cut out for itself.
It has got it's not only 14 days that we have a lunar day that we call, but the fact remains is that it's got it's basically to say it is technically under a lot of pressure to do a lot of work, but it's good science that we are looking at, and probably we are looking for those ice crystals that we thought is there on the southern part of the moon. We are looking for certain rare earth minerals as well, which we think is abundant. We are looking at helium-3, again possible for using as fuel, and at the same time we are also looking at staging points. So how good is the southern area of the moon when it comes to making it a spaceport for further interplanetary explorations? All that data will be coming through Chandrayaan, and it is not us who's going to keep crunching that data. There's going to be a whole lot of people who are going to crunch that data for us. A lot of space agencies are going to crunch that data for us. And as I was telling you earlier, Kabir, we are looking at collaborations now, and we are also looking at international private space explorers also taking interest in us because of our interesting budgetary schedules that we in fact have. And it looks like this is our moment under the moon. So I think we have come a long way, and from
so NASA's administrator says, congratulations ISRO and India on being the 4th country to soft land a spacecraft on the moon. We're glad to be your partner on this mission. Director General, European Space Agency says, incredible, congratulations to ISRO, Chandrayaan-3, and to all the people of India. What a way to demonstrate new technologies. I'm thoroughly impressed. Then the director, championing space, a UK space agency, says, congratulations to India on this amazing feat. Vladimir Putin says, please accept my heartfelt congratulations. Cyril Ramaphosa, President of South Africa, where the BRICS Summit is currently on. This, for us, as the BRICS family, is a momentous occasion, and we rejoice with you. And then, of course, Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid, congratulations to our friend India for the successful landing on the moon. The moon landing triggers celebrations certainly across the country, and not just the country, across the globe as well. Salute scientists. BJP notes Modi's leadership, Congress Nehru's vision. That's the word that's doing the rounds. Basically, Varghese, what's happening on the ground is that people are not saluting the scientists. BJP is noting Modi's leadership, Congress is noting Nehru's vision. But what we should essentially be doing is to salute the scientists. Now that all of this is done, Gaganyaan, like you were talking about, some PSLV, GSLV based missions, Aditya L1 Sun Observatory,
Chandrayaan,
and Chandrayaan, our mission to Venus, to planet Venus,
and also a rover mission to Mars.
And as Somnath yesterday said, I'm not going to be telling people that what our cost effective measures are, because if I tell you, then you're also going to become cost effective, aren't you?
That is the secret that we are in fact looking at, and I think that is the secret that ISRO is keeping to heart as well, as to what makes them cost effective. And that is something that a lot of foreign agencies have also been asking. How does ISRO make it so cost effective, and how much of science they actually do with that cost effectiveness? Because of course space is a costly business. That's what led to some countries going bankrupt as well.
Absolutely. Now, at the same time, that Pragyan rover, and these are of course some of the first visuals that came in when the lander imaging detection camera was trying to capture what is a safer and smoother area for it to land. So it was trying to come down. These are some of the first pictures that have come out. But the Pragyan rover coming out, that is a big deal. It already is out. People were saying that the dust and the hot gases are going to hinder the functioning of these packages and payloads, but it seems like it did not take much time. The Pragyan rover in fact did come out.
Yeah, it did come out, and of course it its vitality was in fact also proven with the kind of pictures that was taken. And remember, there were a lot of these foolproof systems also carried out, in the sense that it was first attached to the lander. When it was confident that the communication was perfect, those those cables would be detached from it. So there's a lot of measures that were put in place to ensure the working of this rover. So this is going to become the Chandrayaan-3 rover, and its landers going to become the blueprint for India's exploration of other planets as well. It's going to be that huge blueprint that they will be relying on. Basically, this is going to become the base on which a lot of future missions are going to be built on.
Students savor the touchdown. They feel the pride. They get goosebumps in the last 15 minutes. So yesterday, even as we were talking about all the exhibitions that were being done, the government, had put out all these schemes and moves, selfie stands at various places, competitions that were done, essay writing competition, or tell us your moon story briefly. There were several competitions. So the students, they put out exhibitions. There were lander models that were created, and I was really surprised to see that all the reactions that came across from the student community, they knew exactly what was going on. The descent, the hard descent phase, the rough braking phase, the fine braking phase, at what, distance and altitude the lander is going to be, at what velocity and at what kind of downfall. I mean, they knew that it's going to be free falling. They knew that there is no atmosphere over there. They knew the exact payload, what the payload is actually going to do. Today, we have everything, at the click of a button, at the touch of a button on the touch, and on the touch screen as well. Internet, YouTube. Great to see that the youngsters were so involved with the process.
Well, it was interesting, and also the fact remains is that science temperament is there among students, and Chandrayaan just upped that excitement, Kabir.
Cheering Atmanirbhar Bharat. Union Minister Nitin Gadkari and US Ambassador to India Eric Garcetti watched the Chandrayaan-3 landing together during the EV Safety Technical Seminar for Atmanirbhar and Surakshit Bharat in New Delhi on Wednesday. The NCAP, India has its own, crash testing standard. All of that is happening, but on the sidelines of that, Eric Garcetti and Nitin Gadkari, our Minister for Road and Transport, highways, the highwayman of India, he watched the landing as well with US Ambassador to India Eric Garcetti. Now this success is going to inspire private space industry to push on innovation as well. Carlsen and Toubro is one big name that was already part of this. What's your opinion on the push on innovation and private players now entering the fray?
Well, private players have always been part of this. What we are looking at is that ISRO, when it comes to certain components giving to private players, have also enhanced the role of private players. They are bringing in top-notch tech stuff, and they are also gaining experience in it, and they are also bringing everything together on this. And I think right now, when it came to the issue about how it will all be assembled, I think ISRO had a very good coordination work. We had not only Carlsen and Toubro was of course looking into
Take a look at this, the latest tweet on your screen, ladies and gentlemen. Chandrayaan-3 rover, made in India, made for the moon. The Chandrayaan-3 rover ramped down from the lander and India took a walk on the moon. More updates coming soon. I mean, it's also a little tease coming from the lander itself. Yesterday, the lander sent a message saying, well, ground control, I have reached my destination and so have you.
So I think that message was what everybody was in fact looking at, and clearly enough we can see how these messages kept going on this, and of course it has been a momentous occasion that we are looking at when it came to Chandrayaan's lander. But again, Kabir, you were talking about the private players in this. You were looking at Godrej Space, you're looking at Carlsen and Toubro. These are some of the prime companies that have been associated with it, and also the government is not only looking at keeping ISRO the prime focus, we are looking at offloading into private players as well. You remember how Skyroot went ahead and tested its rocket. It was on a testing phase, and probably when we look at low Earth orbit satellites, the private players would be out there to look at that market, and therefore ISRO will be giving them the know-how and expertise, and also allow testing of their products from their spaceports to find out whether they are durable enough and efficient enough to carry all those small satellites into that low Earth orbit. So I think that is going to be the commercial space first that is going to be exploited, and with a country like India, the low Earth orbit satellites would in fact be one of the most important aspects for business, as well as an aspect for ensuring that it does have some kind of social impact as well.
Now, what I'm going to read is has been written by a senior fellow at the Asia Society Policy Institute of Delhi and a contributing editor on the international affairs for the Indian Express. It says, how the moonshot clears way for the big and the bold. The moon has become a critical way station for human future activity in space. Now, while Chandrayaan took nearly 6 weeks to get to the moon, the failed Russian mission Luna 25 arrived there in a week. China's Chang'e 5 launched in 2020, took a week to reach there. In 1969, back in 1969, Varghese, the US Apollo 11 mission, which landed the first men on the moon, took just 4 days. The difference is in the power of the rockets. Now, if India wants more impactful moon projects, it needs bigger budgets and more powerful rockets. That brings us to the second imperative, the massive scale of resources needed for significant space projects. It says, third, privatization alone is not enough. It needs to be complemented with international cooperation. There was a reason India had to rely on frugal innovation, technology sanctions. Then it says, fourth, the talk of international cooperation brings us to the real world of geopolitical competition. Great power rivalry on the earth has inevitably begun to envelop the moon as well. And finally, with outer space and the moon set for an increased range of activity, Delhi needs laws, domestic as well as international, for its effective promotion and regulation. India must also pay serious attention to shaping a global governance of space. And India can actually lead that particular governance model, can it not? India has taken the right kind of steps internationally.
This is what I was in fact saying from that Manorama article as well. I had read some parts of it saying that why it is going to be an unwritten competition between China as well as India, which is where this article also in fact talks about geopolitical rivalry coming in. And space is cutting edge technology, Kabir. It's not going to be easy at all when it comes to mastering it, and I think we should wait and watch as to see how much of cooperation is possible. But it looks like some space agencies are ready for the cooperation to up the kind of competition that we see, and also to understand how we do it on a frugal budget. But if India is planning to do or be quite serious with deep space, then of course a lot of money is required to push in all these space projects. And also we have to be a little bit careful when we also go to such projects, because there is a high chance of failure as well, and there are of course successes, but again, space is the final frontier and not everybody knows everything about what is happening out there.
All right then, well, we'll keep you updated. Ladies and gentlemen, today at 11 a.m. we're again going to be talking about the land of Vikram and Nambi Narayan. There's a reaction coming across. Let's quickly listen into it.
With the kind of other commitments what we have, and that too after a failure, and that failure has put us into great difficulty, and then we are achieving this. So this is, in that sense, it is unbelievable. But it is believable because everyone in ISRO knows that it is achievable, and they have achieved it. And how they achieved it is a simple matter, that every failure of Chandrayaan-3 was addressed to. Every failure. Let it be a software problem, let it be a stability problem, let it be a redundancy problem, let it be additional requirement problem, all are addressed to. And all were rectified. And the failure of Chandrayaan-2 was made use of in favor of Chandrayaan-3. In other words, we have used that failure in our favor. That's how we eliminated an orbiter, and then we added some weight to the lander. In that sense, you have really done a wonderful job. And in the process, we were confident before the launch itself, it will be a success. And it was a success. So, thank you so much and congratulations to all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Well, so international, national, Vikram's first pictures, the Pragyan rover, all of those latest images, we'll show all of that to you at 11 a.m. Do tune in for a landed Vikram Chandrayaan-3 update at 11 a.m. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's shift our focus. Something really peculiar and strange and fatal happened towards the latter half of the day yesterday. Wagner mercenary group's leader, Yevgeny Prigozhin, who's been in the news for the longest time. Take a look at this right here on the Tribune, on the top front page. It says, Wagner chief feared dead in jet crash in Russia. Now, the thing is that he was said to be on the passenger list of the 10 people who were traveling in that private jet. But at the same time, you know, no confirmation per se, because the bodies haven't been able to be identified yet. The crash was so ghastly, and of course we've got some visuals of the crash, and we've had to pick and choose those visuals very carefully because there's a lot of blood, there's a lot of disfigured, dismembered bodies on the ground as well. Varghese, the Kremlin has been infamous, right? And well, I'm not gonna, you know, the hint is clear out there, but of course there is no confirmation per se. Now take a look at that. You can see the plane falling down. This recorded off of a mobile phone. That's the plane that's coming down, and it's going to crash, you know, in a huge farmland. Now the conspiracy theories are already doing the rounds on the internet. People are saying that the aircraft was tampered with. People are saying that this is another move to silence Yevgeny Prigozhin. The last time around, the Wagner
permanently silence him.
Wagner mercenaries declared a march to Moscow. It pretty much happened, you know, unopposed. And this time around, it's going to be interesting to see because Putin has taken the heavier artillery from Wagner mercenaries. They have announced the march again, but will it be as unopposed as it was last time around? Because you just can't simply march into Russia's Moscow anymore.
Well, it's
not so easily.
There are no geographical features that tend to protect Moscow itself. I mean, after most of Eastern Europe, it's kind of a vast plain. So it's easy for any army to march straight towards Moscow. And the only thing that overbearing would be the Russian winter that tends to stop armies from moving towards Moscow. And of course, we are not reached that winter stage. So we are expecting the mercenaries to, in fact, go ahead. But how will Putin handle an angry mercenary group like the Wagner Group, which has provided some kind of momentous kind of push for the Russian forces in Ukraine, and at the same time it has become a thorn on the part of the Russian army as well. So here we see when Prigozhin first started that rebellion, it was about replacing certain generals for the wrong decisions taken, and then you saw the kind of rebellion that happened, and then there was this compromise deal. Yeah, this is the, I mean, the type of compromise deal that we have seen.
That's another picture from the crash site.
And all this happened, and then we have Prigozhin's plane crash. Of course, a lot of people are trying to put 2 + 2 is equal to 4, but again, without evidence, we wouldn't go to that. But the fact remains is that there is a question mark on the Wagner chief's death, because in the middle of the war, he did make Putin look very, very vulnerable. And the strongman image that Putin was trying to portray was not evident when the Wagner group was marching towards Moscow. And of course, after things were in control, we did say that there was some kind of a compromise that was reached with the mercenary group. But then after the death of Prigozhin, I think Putin has unleashed a force that is going to be quite detrimental to an extent. But how would he in fact try to assuage it is the big question that we need to ask. Detrimental in the sense that if his calculations goes wrong, he is taking a huge risk of starting another civil war within Russia's territory, and at the same time waging a war in Ukraine. So it's going to be a double front.
General Surovkin has been removed from office as well. Now, take a look at this. Russia has removed Sergei Surovkin, nicknamed General Armageddon, as the head of the Air Force. He had reportedly vanished from public view during the Wagner mercenary mutiny against the top army brass. 2 media outlets confirmed Surovkin's removal. Wagner chief's mutiny could have triggered civil war. This is something that Putin had said. So Of course, again, all pointing towards the fact that there might be some foul play at hand in this crash. That's essentially the report that's doing the rounds. Rebel Prigozhin, Wagner boss, among 10 who were feared dead in that particular jet crash. Now, Surovikin is the most senior Russian military figure to lose his job over the June 23rd 34 mutiny, which President Vladimir Putin has said could have tipped Russia into civil war. Prigozhin wanted to topple Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu and Valery Gerasimov, Chief of General Staff. Both remain in their posts as of now. Now, once commander of Russia's overall war effort in Ukraine, when he was lauded by Russia and the Western military experts as one of its most effective operators, Surovikin has not yet been publicly fired. His sacking was confirmed by Russian state news agency. Now, the RIA that claimed Colonel General Viktor Avslov was temporarily acting as commander-in-chief of the Air Force. The RBC news outlet, citing two unnamed sources, also reported that Surovikin had been removed from his post. The news suggests the authorities found fault with his behavior during the revolt. I mean, for strange reasons, somebody like, their chief of Armageddon has been removed. Prigozhin, who somebody they thought could have tipped off a civil war in Russia, now removed from the equation completely. What's going to happen next? What about the other Wagner mercenaries?
Well, that's the big question I think they are all asking, because as I said, the Wagner mercenaries have proved that they can be a thorn for the Russian state, and they have also proved that they can easily march towards Moscow. Their march was stopped despite reports coming in when Prigozhin was alive that his mercenary group was being attacked. They did march quite close to Moscow. So it is going to be an unwanted situation that Putin has created, and maybe Putin has the plan that in case a rebellion breaks out, how to deal with it. But right now it looks like a brutal decision has been taken, and in that brutal decision what we are looking at is that probably we don't know how the entire episode of Prigozhin's death is involved, but there seems to be a brutal decision being taken to say that they are not going to tolerate any sort of rebellion, no matter what, because as I was saying, you don't want an internal disturbance within Russian state when you're having a war. No country wants that.
Meanwhile, I'm sure this is fatal news, and it's unfortunate that somebody has died, but I'm sure on the other side of the
and someone who was very loyal to Putin.
On the other side of the front
someone
lines,
who was very loyal to Putin.
Absolutely, absolutely.
He was,
Western experts have, like I was saying, Western experts have said he's one of the best operators that Putin had.
Effective operators. He was sent to a place where there was complete standstill on the front, and he was able to, in fact, make some kind of headway on that front as well. So this is Prigozhin, who was supposed to have been...
You remember the Bakhmut firing, the Bakhmut shelling? And Bakhmut, one of the most important, points in Western Ukraine. It was captured by Prigozhin and the Wagner mercenaries. Well, what's going to happen?
That's what I'm saying. He was actually dropped off in very...
People, look at that. People are, trickling in with roses.
Well, I think Prigozhin...
There's a reaction by the United States' President, Joe Biden, on this. Let's quickly listen into that.
I don't know for a fact what happened, but I'm not surprised.
Do you think Putin was able?
There's not much that happens when Russia is not behind, but I don't know enough to know the answer. I don't know for a fact what happened, but I'm not surprised.
Do you think Putin was able?
There's not much that happens when Russia is not behind, but I don't know enough to know the answer.
Well, so the United States President says he doesn't know the facts, but he's not surprised. And let me tell you, many on this planet won't be surprised.
A lot of people won't be surprised, because this is
across the front lines in Ukraine.
This is kind of a technically a Russian chess game where you have to be keeping your eyes and ears open.
Absolutely.
You don't know which pieces are going to move, and you don't know which pieces are going to be sacrificed.
It's great that you spoke about chess, because that's a great segue into our next segment. Let's talk about the Chess World Cup, the FIDE Chess World Cup. Praggnanandhaa, our very own Pragg, he's fighting it out with Magnus Carlsen. And Magnus Carlsen, let me tell you, the Norwegian has been at the #1 rank for God knows how long. Praggnanandhaa, he defeated #2, he defeated #3. Now he's sitting there with number 1, and he is giving number 1 Magnus Carlsen a run for his money. The first game ended in a draw after 35 moves each. The second game, Praggnanandhaa started very strong, but then it seems like towards the end, the time caught up to him, and that game ended in a 30-move draw. Now today, ladies and gentlemen, it might just be another, we'll have to go for a shorter period, a rapid fire tie break. That's what's going to happen. It says here, knight holds the king again. Praggnanandhaa Carlsen draw second game, tiebreaker is going to take place today. I did not, this is a quote by R. Praggnanandhaa. He says, I did not really think that he would agree for a quick draw, but I was also fine with that. I did feel that he did not have a lot of energy. I hope he recovers tomorrow. And why they're saying that is because the Norwegian, it is being speculated that he's going through food poisoning right now, Varghese. But on the other hand, Pragg, our very own Pragg, is in the best form of his life, and a shorter format of chess is his A game. He's the best in the world right now when it comes to shorter formats. And the tiebreaker, both of them, the two tiebreakers that are left, are both going to be
on the
shorter
formats. Oh, it's going to be an interesting game, and chess as a game has always fascinated, and probably we have a prodigy from our side that could actually change the thinking in the chess world as well. Because I was actually watching that game, and I was actually seeing the kind of reaction that was there from Carlsen, and Carlsen at many points was actually surprised the manner in which Praggnanandhaa was actually carrying out with the moves.
Pragg, no pushover, but no food in 3 days. Maybe it's the fact that Carlsen is suffering from a bout of food poisoning and has admittedly barely eaten in the past 3 days. And even his opponent, Pragg, says that, he's been looking really frail. But how does the tiebreaker essentially work? Let's just explain that to the viewers. With the Chess World Cup final undecided after 2 games in the classical format, our Praggnanandhaa and Magnus Carlsen will now face off in a tiebreaker featuring shorter format contests on Thursday. 2 tie-break games shall be played in rapid format with time control of 25 minutes for each player. Each player will get a 10-second increment per move starting from move 1. If that does not provide a winner, the players will play 2 more games with a time control of 10 minutes for each player. Each player will get a 10-second increment per move starting from move 1. If that also does not get a result, there will be 2 more games with time control of 5 minutes per each player plus 3 seconds increment per move starting from move 1. If the 2 players are still tied, the blitz portion of the tie break will start. This is the equivalent of sudden death. Previously, 2 games made a set, but in the blitz portion, players will play only 1 game with a time control of 3 minutes and a 2-second increment per move starting from move 1. So whatever you do, we will finally have a winner today. This format shall be repeated until there is a winner. So, like in the olden days of the Mahabharata, you would say, Lord Bhim is, fighting out this battle for God knows 80 days, 90 days on end, because it's a complete tie break, and, there is nobody's, letting go. It might just be the same situation, but the entire country is rooting for Praggnanandhaa, isn't it?
Everybody is in fact waiting for that, and I think after the landing, this is going to be the next sweet news that the country would in fact hear if Praggnanandhaa is able to go ahead and beat Magnus Carlsen.
All right, let's shift our focus, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk about BRICS Summit. Prime Minister at the BRICS, Varghese. I've been focusing too much on Chandrayaan, it seems. Didn't really focus much on the BRICS Summit, but BRICS expansion is something that the Prime Minister spoke about.
See, the Prime Minister spoke about it, but he said that it should be with consensus when you talk about BRICS expansion, and of course there are geopolitical concerns within the expansion itself. I think the Prime Minister is all for certain economies to be added into BRICS, but not certain economies that tend to have already failed economies, because that would be a drag on the grouping as such. But several African nations that are doing well are in fact trying to be part of the BRICS as well. Even in Latin America, we have always had Brazil representing Latin America, but there are very good economies as well. Some economies have improved in Latin America, which they are also trying to be part of it. And interestingly enough, there was an attempt to say that there should be some sort of common currency when it comes to BRICS. And of course, Russia always saying that de-dollarization is the big word that everyone is trying to say. You know, there's a whole group of countries, and even in BRICS, we are looking at some of these BRICS countries actually going ahead with de-dollarization, trying to settle trade deficits between each other when it comes to the trade deficit between them, from dollars to their own currencies and the currencies of the host countries from where they have taken the goods. So it is interesting to see that de-dollarization drive is very much part of the BRICS aspect, and this would, what they say, would challenge the dollar's hegemony on the world economy, and it's been a part of the BRICS agenda also on that front. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister also said that BRICS will break barriers and revitalize economies, is what he has said. Modi also lauded South Africa's focus on the global south. He also went on to say that the kind of reforms and also the kind of ideation that is required when it comes to the global south is to actually reflect the global south's realities as well. So that the Prime Minister has always been saying that. And apart from the BRICS, this thing, the Prime Minister also in fact proposed undertaking skill mapping, promoting mobility among BRICS countries and joint efforts for protection of big cats under International Big Cat Alliance. He also proposed establishing a repository of traditional medicines among BRICS countries. We're talking about the Chinese also have a traditional medicine. We have traditional medicines. The South Africans also have traditional medicines. So that is a new kind of a thing. So there are several of these aspects that have been put into place when it comes to BRICS. So that is the thing that we are in fact looking at.
And also Xi Jinping, you know, there was a report that, you know, there was a scheduling clash. Xi Jinping was given an abbreviated state visit as well over there.
See, that schedule clash is something that
because we're talking about India versus China on the in the space,
and India versus
let's talk
China
about India versus China on Mother Earth as well.
On diplomacy also, I think.
Right.
So, yes, there was. You see, the Chinese have been trying to move into Africa for quite some time. They have had closer economic ties, trying to exploit resources, giving the scientific know-how to map resources, especially for mining. You're talking about gold, diamonds, bauxites, as well as other kind of minerals. They have been, in fact, trying to also ensure that copper is also taken into consideration, because when we look at a world that is going to be run probably on electric batteries, copper is going to become a crucial element along with lithium. So they are also looking at those factors. So China has been having a head start over there. India too has been leveraging its options, especially with its large diaspora in these African nations.
BRICS will break barriers, revitalize economies. This is coming in from Prime Minister Modi. BRICS will be breaking barriers, revitalizing economies, inspiring innovations, creating opportunities and shaping the future, says Prime Minister Modi. South Africa said after the second day of the summit, the leaders agreed to document which set out guidelines and principles, processes for considering countries that wish to become members of BRICS. With many developing countries looking at BRICS with renewed hope at a time of great global uncertainty, 23 countries have formally approached the grouping for membership. In his address, Chinese President Xi called for speeding up the expansion process, saying more members will make global governance more equitable. India, however, wanted BRICS to first finalize the criteria and guiding principles for extending membership, something the summit has actually continued to focus on. So it's going to be interesting to see. But now, today's the final day, it's final summit, and the Prime Minister is also expected to visit Greece. Let's not forget, he's on his way back. He's also going to be visiting Greece as well. So on the diplomatic front, it seems like India is making the right kind of strides.
Well, India is making the right kind of strides, and the diplomatic visit to Greece is also should be mentioned, because we are having deeper ties with Greece. We are having deeper ties with Armenia. As I said, Turkey, Azerbaijan and Pakistan have become an axis. So to counter that axis, we have been speaking with Greece as well as Armenia. Armenia, of course, we are selling them our defense products as well. With Greece, we are going to have a much more closer relationship, especially on the defense front. And that is because, you know, how Turkey has been behaving with our Kashmir question and also has taken anti-India stands several times. And Greece and Turkey have been having an animosity for years together, though both of them have been members of the NATO group. grouping. So I think India is also keep using flexibility of its diplomacy to actually tell countries like Azerbaijan as well as Turkey that, you know, when it comes to our national interests, you better look into it.
All right, then let's shift our focus, ladies and gentlemen, to some domestic political news that has taken shape back at home. Take a look at this, Varghese. Enforcement Directorate says Abhishek's links with firm tied to laundering have been unearthed. Mamta nephew was CEO of the company that laundered proceeds of crime. So are we coming to an end in that particular case that Abhishek Banerjee has been embroiled in? It says Abhishek failed to get any concession from the Supreme Court against the Enforcement Directorate probe into the alleged teacher recruitment scam when he appealed for stalling the investigation. And it's quite important, and I'll tell you the salient features over here. The Enforcement Directorate on Wednesday said that searches conducted in the past 2 days in Kolkata found alleged links of Trinamool Congress MP Abhishek Banerjee, CM Mamta Banerjee's nephew, with a company involved in laundering the proceeds of crime in the teachers' recruitment scam. During the search operation, various incriminating documents and digital evidence were seized. One of the accused, Sujay Krishna Bhadra, was the chief operating officer of Leaps and Bounds Private Limited. Look at the name of the company also, Leaps and Bounds Private Limited, a company used for making dubious transactions running into crores of rupees. This coming in from Enforcement Directorate. Now, Mamta Banerjee, of course, will come out and say that, this is
being
the
targeted.
India government's bid to target the
there.
opposition using CBI and ED.
But Kabir, the big
this
question
case has been going on for a long time.
It's been going for and the big question over here, ED is in fact throwing light into how that money was actually, or proceeds from the teacher recruitment scam, how it was actually handled, one, how it was also being distributed. Now we know that there are a series of these shadowy companies that we are talking about, how the proceeds went into them, how did it go, of course the ED will be trying to prove out, but then from there trying to legitimize that proceedings as such. And with Abhishek being heading that, well, that is a big giveaway as to some of these companies being involved in this. I think it's going to be a long legal battle for Abhishek to prove that he doesn't come under the sections of PMLA, which is the normal act that has been put out by the ED, and that he is going to have to prove a lot about why he was CEOs of certain companies. And if the ED is right, saying that they have incriminating evidence on the digital front, then that is also going to be quite interesting to watch.
All right. Is the noose really tightening in on Abhishek Banerjee? That's the question, and we'll, of course, probe this particular development. Does it warrant a debate or a discussion today, or should we wait for
I think let's wait for some more details about it, because right now we have the ED's version. We'll wait for what the reactions will be coming in from the TMC as well, and then of course the political slugfest is going to happen on this.
Absolutely,
100%.
Well, all right. Again, shifting our focus to some international news. This coming in from the Pakistan Chief Justice. It says defects in trial court verdict against Imran Khan in the Tosha Khana case. Pakistan Chief Justice Umar Ata Bandial on Wednesday observed that there were prima facie shortcomings in the trial court's judgment in the Tosha Khana corruption case against Imran Khan, and said that the Supreme Court would wait for the Islamabad High Court's order on the former Premier's appeal against his conviction and the 3-year sentence before interfering in the case. The Chief Justice's observation came as a 3-judge special bench of the Supreme Court heard the PTI chief's plea filed against the trial court's proceedings. So, Imran Khan trying to find a way to essentially re-enter, the public life, re-enter the common fray. That's what he's using. So he's asked for a stay on his conviction, and meanwhile the Pak CGI says that there are defects in the trial court's verdict against Imran Khan. So already it seems like it's tipped a little bit towards.
It looks like this is kind of a silver lining that is there for Imran Khan, and the politics in Pakistan now going on between Shehbaz and his brother Nawaz, and the return of Nawaz is being touted as one of the biggest things that's going to happen in Pakistan politics.
Right.
And you have, as I said, it was meant for two people. Pakistan's democracy. You had the Bhuttos and then you had the Sharifs. Then you have someone gate crashing like Imran Khan. And it looks like they just decided to, with the help of the army, of course, remove him. And now this third forces tend to spoil the aspects of all those who were trying to in fact come back with it. So that is the aspect that we're looking at.
Well, so a silver lining for Imran Khan
Interesting
or
politics.
another hit to his credibility? That's the bigger question over here. And you know, right here on the international page, I'm also taking a look at this particular news. Take a look at this. Man who mocked Xi Jinping flees China on a jet ski, rides 300 kilometers to South Korea. A Coast Guard personnel inspects the jet ski in Incheon in South Korea. Says a Chinese man who rode a jet ski more than 300 kilometers across the sea to South Korea from China was jailed in his homeland several years ago for making fun of its leader Xi Jinping, a South Korean activist said on Wednesday. South Korea's Coast Guard said it had detained a Chinese man in his 30s on August 16th after he had traveled from China on a 1800cc jet ski, wearing a life jacket and helmet and carrying a telescope, compass and 5 containers of fuel. The Coast Guard did not identify the man who was taken into custody in the western coastal city of Incheon. Reuters was not able to contact the man and a press officer at the Chinese embassy declined to comment. Meanwhile, South Korean activist Lee Dae-seong identified the man as Kyung Pyong. Lee said he had been jailed in China after posting a selfie on social media. Quotes, he appears to have decided to flee after feeling political pressure. So Xi Jinping's political pressure has forced a Chinaman to ride his jet ski 300 kilometers to South Korea.
Well, South
and
Korea
that's the fear.
actually
That's
South
the fear.
Korea. South Korea is the transit point for a lot of political prisoners from North Korea as well as from China, and they have seen that kind of an increase in the recent past as well. Well, Xi, you know, there is a crackdown. If he's able to, in fact, criticize Xi, I think he had some guts to do it, because in China, you know how they revere their leaders, and anything against Xi, because Xi is considered right now, the position that Xi enjoys is probably as the second most powerful man in the world after the US president himself. And locally, he has had a huge say when it comes to the local Communist Party affairs and also on domestic party situations as well. So in that context, for him to in fact criticize Xi, well, that's some kind of challenge that he did take up. But then escaping, of course, was the only option left for him, it looks like. But the way he escaped is the most interesting part of it, Kabir.
Absolutely. On a jet ski 300 kilometers into South Korea.
And carrying all that fuel. Yeah, that's
Meanwhile, I don't know if the student community is going to like this or not, or if they'd want to flee or not, because the students will have to go through boards twice a year now. What's all of that? What's all that about? As if we're already, you know, not putting our children through so much, you know, examination pressure. I know you're very academic, Varghese. You'd want 4 board exams in a year now, wouldn't you?
I wouldn't want that much of
But why 2 exams? Where is it happening? What board is this? I mean, you know, lay bare the semantics of this.
Well, actually, I was looking at that. It was from the national proposal that was in fact rather made by the national
national
curriculum
framework, national
yeah.
curricular framework.
So
12th class students have to take up two languages.
Two languages and all. And you know, the idea is.
Do you think that's going to help the linguistic burden of the North? Something that we were discussing, not arguing about Hindi.
We were discussing and arguing, Kabir.
Right.
But anyway, jokes apart, what I think is that, see, there are 2 options. One, of course, you wait till the end of the year and you give that options to that student to continue with it, or you have it, the burden being broken twice in 6 months, and that would effectively ensure that, you know, the entire portion burden doesn't happen on the student. You have a complete assessment, it is broken down, you understand where you need to improve your scores, that is also there, and then it tends to break the framework in such a way that the kind of pressure that is there on that student is actually taken off. But again, I would look at, let me wait for the details rather than actually making that comment on it, because when it comes to the details about it, I think the entire idea about the national curriculum going for twice a year kind of a board exam kind of a system was to actually take out the kind of portion burden that is there. So probably if you're looking at 16 lessons, you will be studying 8 lessons for half of the board and then the next 8 lessons after that. So it is quite divided, and also takes away that burden of trying to study all the 16 for the end of the year kind of an exam.
But the bigger question again is that is it for the current 12th grade or is it for the upcoming 12th grade?
It'll
under
be
this transformative curriculum, the traditional annual, it says that the traditional annual board exams will witness a significant change. The board examinations will be conducted twice a year, providing students with the opportunity to secure their best scores. So it's essentially done to help out the students. Now, this strategic move aims to enhance the high pressure environment often associated with single annual exams, according to the Ministry of Education's new curriculum framework. The Union Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan announced that the new curriculum framework, in accordance with the National Education Policy, is ready, and textbooks for the academic year 2024.
So that means next year onwards they can,
so it's going to be essentially for next year. Next year's 12th grade will have to go through 2 board examinations to alleviate the pressure.
You know how, how 12th, see, I understand the vision with which the, education minister is trying to push that proposal. But then, Kabir, the thing is that 12th grade, especially those who are looking for sciences, they have to go through a series of competitive exams, they have to prepare for it. And the worst part is they are pushed into this cattle coaching classes where they are supposed to sit in large numbers again. So you're just studying and studying and studying. And at the end of the day, the board exams becomes the secondary feature of these, of your 12th, and your competitive exams to get into engineering as well as medical courses become the highlight of your 12th exams. So your 12th exams is essentially the board exams. I don't know how that kind of a pressure can be elevated as such, because these competitive exams for engineering and medical science is what is now upstaging your board exams as well. So the pressure technically is built on the succeeding in the competition exams rather than on the board exams. That is the crucial aspect of it, and I think that has to be addressed with the national curriculum framework, saying that board exams also matter, but not in the manner in which how the competition exams are being pushed, because the actual pressure is built in succeeding on the competitive front.
Well, I don't know how the student community is going to take it, because
I think they agree. They will in fact agree
in that particular
so that is why I was trying to say that if you're looking only at board exams, it's trying to elevate the pressure from them and have it on 2 different occasions. But they're not preparing only for the board exams in 12th, they're preparing for competition exams. So technically what happens is this becomes an added burden in the middle.
You also have the CUET, several other exams. You never know what new exam is going to come up as well.
You have, if those are going for, of course, medical, it will be NEET, then you have
this
engineering.
Is something that we can actually have a good discussion.
We are in fact having on it.
We will
be having
ladies and gentlemen, today in the afternoon, we will in fact have a proper discussion on it. We'll speak to some teachers, parents association members, and of course the members from the student community as well. Also, I'm taking a look at, before we wrap up today's page 1, it seems like we've spoken for way too long. Chandrayaan actually takes a lot of time. It took 41 days to reach there as well. Apollo mission was carried out in 4 days. Luna 25 took almost pretty much a week. Changi 5 that picked up ground, solar lunar rocks, beg your pardon, that also just took 5 days. We took 41 days, and that's why it took so much time.
No, that's because we relied on gravity highway more than our fuel to burn towards the moon.
All right. Now, what are some newspapers telling you about the floods and the rain? Because if you're looking at the rain, Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand are expecting more rainfall. I'm reading what's happening in Punjab over here. Flood threat looms in Navanshahar. Residents of 18 villages have already been evacuated. This is the aftermath of heavy rain. Now, heavy rain warning for Himachal and Uttarakhand again. Let's see what newspapers are telling us. There is heavy rain in Ropar. Administration has issued an alert. 81.2 mm and 51 mm rain in Gangovile and Kotla respectively. 29.6 mm and 32 mm in Nangal and Lohand. This is what we're picking up. This is Punjab. Now, what you're seeing on your screens are visuals from Solan. The devastation, destruction the rains have caused this time around, it's not simple to just take a look at it.
In fact, it's also said that rains have triggered landslides, floods in Himachal, 12 people die. Punjab is the lower riparian state when compared to the Himachal and Uttarakhand, where the rains are happening, especially in the catchment areas.
11 people dead, Varghese.
Yep.
Himachal rains leave trail of destruction and 11 people dead. Uttarakhand rivers in spate. People have been asked to evacuate. 18 villages in Punjab that have already been evacuated. Punjab schools have been closed till the 26th of August. Vehicles are stuck in landslides. There is complete debris, destruction of private property and public property as well.
So
People
you know what?
Can't even wade through,
you know what is the reason for it? The reason is a western disturbance is also impacting the western Himalayan region. That is what the IMD said. A cyclonic circulation is lying over central parts of South Uttar Pradesh in lower and middle tropospheric levels. That is the reason what is leading to these rains, and you have rains also expected in certain parts of Uttar Pradesh as well.
So the monsoon fury is not over yet, and even as we are getting these visuals from Kotdwar, from Solan, from Shimla, and of course Punjab as well, completely flooded. Take a look at that. The cars going for a swim. That's something that we're talking about. Visuals from Dharamshala, landslides after landslides. Those landslides, horrible landslides that we saw from Himachal Pradesh.
Well, that is the visual of that car completely being upturned, and then of course you know, these areas have become quite vulnerable, especially because of the coupled with it's not only this you know, weather system that we're talking about. The larger weather system of El Nino is also active, and that is why we see the change in rain patterns as well. So it is a difficult situation for Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Punjab as well as Himachal Pradesh. Himachal and Uttar Pradesh, in fact, Himachal and Uttarakhand actually taking up the brunt of it.
And not just that, it says Pakistan's Punjab province also flooded. At least 1 lakh people have been rescued so far. So even as the Pakistan president has called poll panel chief for meeting to choose election date, there is an extreme weather event that's also taking place in Pakistan. What our Punjab is going through, Punjab province in Pakistan is also reeling under floods, is what we're picking up. But 11 people have been killed in the recent monsoon fury, and well, ladies and gentlemen, there's more to come. Let's not forget. So people have been advised, there are several guidelines that have been put out by the IMD. Do constantly check in with the Met Department, you know, Twitter page, well, now X, and their websites for the latest updates. Do not venture out until absolutely necessary, and make sure that, you know, I mean, subsidence is so scary these days. The entirety of houses are falling down. It's important that the government make sure that that audit is carried out. The Supreme Court did in fact come in and said that the carrying capacity of these hill stations is something that is going to be you know, taken up. That is something that is going to be checked, and it's high time that we check something like that. 11 people dead. The death and destruction towards the end of the year, the numbers when they come out, the totality of the death and destruction that was done due to rains in just in the state of Himachal Pradesh, it's going to be simply eye-boggling.
It's going to be quite eye-boggling as well. But again, Kabir, what we are saying is that the frequency of such rains happening, and that is the shocking part of it.
All right then, from what we've covered so far, it seems like the board examination debate is something that we'll have to take up. Absolutely latest fresh images and updates coming from the Chandrayaan-3's Vikram lander, our Vikram lander, India on the moon. We'll do a special show on that at 11 a.m. and then later on during the afternoon a show on the board examinations. After lunch, it seems like, well, you'll get to see something from down south, the South Indian with Sudha Sadanand, and at 7 p.m. the biggest debate of the day, the debate that you shouldn't miss out on to really understand what India thinks. That's going to happen at 7 p.m. and at 8 p.m. all the international stories, including the Wagner mercenary chief's death in that particular plane crash and all the conspiracy theories that are now doing the rounds. We'll talk about that at 8 p.m. under Global Lens. This is Varghese P. Abraham and Kabir Naqvi signing off. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. Keep watching News 9 Live.
Pakistan is actually genociding Baloch people. So being Baloch is a crime. If you are a Baloch, it means in the eyes of Pakistan, you don't have any right to live.
The Chinese and Pakistanis are colonizing the Baloch and exploiting their resources.
The Baloch armed struggle will continue unless China withdraws, Pakistan military withdraws from Balochistan and give Baloch complete authority to decide for themselves.